Welcome to World Action and Reaction News. Before starting today's news, my request to all dear friends, please press like button if this information is useful for you, and also hit the subscribe button along with bell icon for future news updates. Let's start today's news. With work on the Union Budget 2018 to start soon, the defense services are prioritizing their allocations. Despite the lion's share of the annual defense allocation amongst the three services, the Army is the most hard-pressed to rationalize its funds. Given its increased, or rather bloated, manpower, the changed nature of warfare and annual financial obligations on account of acquired capabilities, the Army is left with pittance to balance between its immediate weapons requirement and indigenous support systems, force multipliers, like the Battlefield Management System, BMS. Consequently, the BMS, though an asset for tactical operations, has, to the disappointment of the indigenous defense industry, been rejected by the Army brass.At today's prices. The BMS for the entire Army, to be provided by 2025, is to cost upwards of Rs 50,000 crore. Being developed by two consortia, Tata Power, Strategic Engineering Division, and Larsen and Toubro and Bharat Electronic Limited and Rolta, India. The total cost for their prototype, each, meant for final selection, built under the high priority make category, is Rs 5,000 crore. The Army, according to reports, was required to pay back Rs 1,000 crore over 5 years as development cost of this project from its kitty. With the Army having excluded the BMS from its acquisitions list, the final decision rests with the Defense Acquisition Council headed by the Defense Minister. The BMS is an excellent system meant to network or connect the frontline soldiers with the commanders, enabling both to see the developing war picture in real time. This would make decision-making faster, allowing own forces to retaliate quicker than the enemy. It would, however, be grossly unfair to assess this development as the Modi government's spurious commitment to Make in India a policy. Two issues, instead, are worth considering why the Army felt compelled to take this drastic decision. For one, these are development prototypes. Once approved, the winner BMS would enter mass production with uncertainty over final cost and timelines. This is not all. Since technology has a short life, the BMS would need regular upgrades to stay ahead in the race. Moreover, considering the BMS is less about hardware and more about software which gets dated, the project, expected to be completed only in 2025, would be a massive drain on the Army's defense allocations. For another, since Indian companies spend minimal on research and development, R&D, most BMS software technologies would have been procured from abroad. Procurements from abroad always come with a price. No country gives away its best technologies, and price escalation depends upon criticality of the requirement. To understand why overall indigenization in India would have a limited success, one has only to look at China. According to UNESCO data, China is the second largest spender of absolute amounts on R&D and accounts for 20% of the world expenditure on R&D, second only to the US share of 30%. Writes economist Amitabh Batra. This cannot be said for India, where defense manufacturers seek early profits. Moreover, the optimal use of the BMS would be in two tactical war scenarios which are no longer relevant. 1. When own forces are operating in foreign lands where soldiers are vulnerable from everywhere: the front, rear, sideways and the air. Here it is critical that frontline combat troops and commanders, of tanks, mechanized infantry, and special forces, stay connected in real time to optimize war results. This scenario is not applicable to India since its army operates only for United Nations mandated peacekeeping operations. And 2, the BMS would be a critical force multiplier if the Indian army is able to make deep ingress inside enemy territory, namely Pakistan. China is a different ball game. It has vast non-contact war capabilities in cyber, electronic warfare, unmanned combat aerial systems and missiles. Given the high-altitude battlefield in the Himalayas, it is difficult to conceive Indian Army making deep ingress into Tibet. Thus, the BMS is essentially against Pakistan. The BMS was conceived by the Army a decade ago. It was approved as Make Project in December 2011, when the war scenario with Pakistan was different. Today, it has changed dramatically with Pakistan's acquisition of tactical nuclear weapons and its increased interoperability, ability to fight together, with Chinese forces. It would be nigh impossible for the Indian Army to make deep ingress inside Pakistan across the international border. Moreover, the political leadership, conscious of the nuclear redliners, would disallow any adventurism by the armed forces. In military terms, the Indian Army would adopt strategic defense with tactical level offense posture against Pakistan. In this case, the BMS would have minimal operational utility. The Army would rather spend its scarce funds on buying long-range firepower, strengthening its air defense network, and importantly, providing self-defense weapons and protection for soldiers. The operational scenario in the mountains and high-altitude areas, where major battles are expected to be fought, would have its own limitations. The war here would be restricted to battle for each post by small army formations. Major tactical battles for capture of Hajipur Pass and so on, given the interoperability between Pakistani and Chinese militaries, are no longer achievable. Even as the probability of Pakistan using nukes on the line of control is zero, the difficult terrain and defense deployments on both sides would rule out deep ingress. Thus, the BMS will have little operational benefit here too. Coming to the BMS prototypes, questions have been raised about the credibility of the Make in India policy if the project is suddenly scrapped. For all it's worth, Make in India is meant to create jobs by absorption of engineering skills by Indian enterprises. This aspect was succulently explained to me by two senior executives of foreign companies. According to Abhay Paranjappa of Lockheed Martin, each company has its proprietary technologies on which years of research and money have been spent. It will be difficult for any company to part with such technologies without appropriate protection agreements. Beyond this, the company could give India what could become its sovereign capabilities. In this, India would be free to upgrade, maintain, and modify the platform on their own. What if India wants state-of-art or best technologies now and for future upgrades? This, according to the chief executive, MDBA Missile Systems, Antoine Bouvier, is not possible without investing in R&D, something for a variety of reasons not done in India. Given all this, while it would be imprudent to push the army to reconsider the BMS, the question is who pays Rs 5,000 crore development cost incurred by the consortia. Since 80% cost of development projects under the Make category is to be borne by the Defence Ministry, the remainder by the developer, this matter ought to be resolved to restore confidence of the private defence industry. The Defence Minister should intervene in this matter.